The meeting will begin in 1 minute. The meeting will begin in 1 minute. Thank you.
Welcome to the Tuesday, April 17th, 4 o'clock informational. We have a relatively short agenda of one item here today. City Council open discussion is our first item. Do we have any items or any? Councilor Erpenbach.
You know, I'm kind of feeling, Mr. Chair, I'm kind of feeling like the crabby old lady telling people to get off their lawn, but I'm going to say it anyway. Put down the phone. I just drove down Minnesota Avenue with this car weaving in front of me, and he's on the phone. Put down the phone. That's all. That's it. I just can't. I cannot understand how you're okay with putting my life in danger because you got to be on the phone.
Okay, thank you, Councilor.
Like I said, crabby old
message
lady.
has been sent. Put down the phone. Okay, Councilor Staley.
I have two items I wanted to discuss today. The first has to do with. Thank you. If you can get that whole thing. Councilor Selberg and I attended a chamber event last Thursday where Jeff Schmidt and Mike Cooper came in and talked to this group of leaders, city leaders, about the shaped places and how it's affected our community. It was very good. But when Mike Cooper was talking, something that caught my attention was he mentioned that we're allowing granny flats and tiny houses in Sioux Falls. And I wasn't aware of that, and maybe some of you were, but I didn't know that was a possibility. And so I did put that on Facebook, and a lot of people had generated interest in that. And so I'm putting out a request that I'd like to have him come in for an informational, and we can talk about instances of what the zoning regulations are, what the fees are. Is there a location requirement, lot size, and any other concerns? So I'd like to say that. And I also want the public to know that when we have this informational time, the 4 o'clock time, in order to get a presentation on this, we have to vet that through our leadership, the chair and co-chair. So I can't just say, let's put something on an informational. It has to go through their approval. So that's why formally I'm asking for this to be considered. So if there's any...
And I don't know that there's ever been a time that a request has been denied. It's always been based on when staff can come. They are... when I say staff, I mean the administration, when those departments can come. A lot of it depends on their ability to get in front of us and the need. While I think it's very important that when things are requested that they're able to come, but we need to be mindful of that time as well. And so oftentimes as we work through the scheduling, it's out weeks and weeks and weeks where things are scheduled, and so I would I have no problem having it come to the informational if that's an option as far as the timeline. But I think that we could certainly utilize the committee meetings more effectively as well, because we've been canceling a lot of committee meetings. This is something land use could certainly take up. We're all invited to come. Then there's public input as well. So even though
at land use there's public input?
Absolutely. I've never had a committee meeting for public services that we've not allowed public input. It's always something that we've just had a precedent of saying, come forward, do you have questions? Council members, public, other concerned citizens, whatever it is, it's an opportunity to say, oh, I heard this and I like this, or I don't like this, or I'd like to have this conversation a little further. I know one that we've done that always generates a lot of conversation is our TIF presentation we do on an annual basis. That's come before, I think, land use, and I had a lot of questions. I know it was as they were presenting that I came to the podium, I asked questions, and we had a more informal conversation for the public as well. And so while I understand your statement, I would encourage us to continue to use those committee meetings so we can continue to work and drive down. We're able to also make changes to the ordinance by vetting it out with one another too. And we've really kind of gotten away from that, I think, over the last few maybe year or so, that we can certainly utilize those committee meetings even more too.
Okay, well, and just so
there's two options.
And I did put out a request to the two of you that this come to an informational, and I think I still have a right to ask for that
Absolutely.
as well. So I just wanted the public to understand that. And then the second
Counselor,
thing,
if I could just add one thing to that, just a little clarification on the public input during our committees. Generally, any public input that we've had during a committee time has a direct correlation to what we are discussing at that committee. It's not an open venue where you can come in and discuss.
Thank you.
Just to clarify that.
Yes.
Okay, Counselor, go ahead.
and then the second thing that I wanted to talk about, and another request that I think would be good for an informational, is concerning the issue, and I brought this up as a resolution 2 weeks ago, and of course it was voted down very adamantly. But I still think that and if you want to put that picture up, please. I'm very concerned about this issue of foam at the falls. And there it is. And I got this picture, I got permission from KSFY to use this, but this really illustrates that foam is coming over the rocks and spilling onto the shoreline. And my original concern when we had the last incident there a few weeks ago was that we were told that fencing was not appropriate, was going to hinder rescue efforts. And that's when I was starting to ask for this audit, and then it became a safety study, and I was asking for this information so I could see the documentation on this. And I did make out a formal request, and I thank you, Councilor Kiley, for appreciating that you want me to ask the council before I talk to the media. I did that. And then I never did get a response from Director Kearney, but he did put out a press release saying that the information has been basically a kind of a dialogue. So what I'm putting out is, and if you want to put the other sheet out, is that I'm making a formal request that we would have at some point with our council. We're going to have Director Kearney in front of us and the Risk Management Department just telling us where we've been and what our plan is for moving forward. And while I understand that none of us have the authority to make safety recommendations, that we perhaps need to have a formal audit done, some of the things I've been hearing from people, because I mean this is a community concern, is having temporary barriers at the site of the last 3 deaths north of the footbridge, having some kind of memorial signage there just to show that something has happened here that we're cognizant of, more predominant danger signs for the foam area, just saying this is, especially in the spring, caution, it's do not touch or come near this, or maybe we do nothing, and that might be something else that we want to consider. But I think it's that important that I'm going to continue to bring it up, even at the risk of being chastised by my colleagues here on the council for how I'm doing that, because I think it's an important thing to talk about within our community. So I'm just wanting to put that out there.
Thank you. Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This week is National Volunteer Week. I don't know if anybody was aware of this, but it's when we celebrate the impact of volunteer service in our communities. And in the spirit of that, I wanted to share a story I came across today about someone going above and beyond. It was online. I don't know, maybe some of you saw this, but it was titled, "If anyone in Sioux Falls knows who this guy is, call me." So it appears this gentleman was out clearing the end of his driveway the aftermath of the blizzard and what he called his hump of disappointment at the end of the driveway. And at that time, a gentleman came up with his 4x4 and bladed it clean. And he said, after he had totally cleared my driveway, I tried to get his attention so I could thank and offer to pay him. Before I could do that, he was off clearing my neighbor's driveway. He continued to do this for about a half a dozen driveways without stopping. Then he drove off. He was gone and nobody knew who he was. Just a good Samaritan doing a random act of kindness. What an awesome guy. In this day and age, when it's easy to get jaded and disheartened, considering worldly situations, then somebody takes the time to go to the effort for total strangers. Really gives you a good feeling about what a great place Sioux Falls is to live. So if anybody knows who this guy is, please let me know. I'd like to thank him. And my picture didn't print off on here. I'd maybe put it up on here, but I don't have a picture. Sorry. Anyway, I'll maybe try to forward that, but I thought maybe in the spirit of National Volunteer Week, it was a nice thing to share. Maybe if we find this guy, it sounds like superhero material to me.
Certainly does.
So I just thought I'd highlight that, and everybody keep that in mind this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other items? I believe there's a direct correlation between my neighbor leaving town and snowfalls, because I'm in charge of his drives and sidewalks while he's gone, and it's been 5 times now. So, Director Cotter, I think we need to keep Chuck in town. Okay. Any other items? All right, seeing none, then we're going to come into our one and only presentation, and Director of Finance Tracy Turback is going to fill us in on the March monthly financial report. Welcome, Director.
Thank you, Counselor. Good afternoon. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office with our March 31st financial update. We'll run through some of the economic indicators, as we always do, that we track, touch on the general fund results through the first quarter, and then just briefly revisit the 2018 budget as we're now a quarter of the way through 2018. So starting off, looking at the unemployment rate, for 2018, the latest data is for February. That indicates an unemployment rate in our local MSA of 3.4%, which is up about 0.3 above where we ended 2017, and but still is below by about 0.5 point the overall state rate, and a full percentage point below the national rate of unemployment. So still indicates very, very strong level of employment here in our local MSA. Looking at year-to-date building permit values, through the first quarter, the Building Services Office has issued almost $104 million value of construction permits, and that is below where we were the first quarter of last year. Last year at this time we were at about $135 million, so it is running behind where we were last year, but I wouldn't read too much into that. That's a short period of time, and in fact, looking at last year at this graphic, you'll see that 2017, as you know, was another high water mark in terms of the value of permits issued, but it really didn't surpass the year before, 16, on a year-to-date basis until October. So it, even though it was behind early in the year, it did pick up steam during the year, and ultimately in October surpassed 2016, and then ended the year, of course, ahead of 16 as well. So point is that things can change a lot fairly drastically in a short period of months. Looking at sales tax collections, this is our general sales tax. 12 months through March, our collections are up 2.1% over the prior 12 months. You can see a year ago we were growing at about 2.5%, so we're not quite back up to that level yet. Our 2018 budget was based on no growth in 17 and 1% in 18. So that's certainly the 2.1% growth rate we're seeing most recently is certainly compares favorably to that. So happy to see that starting to tick upward. It's certainly not at the robust levels we would like to see, or that we have kind of grown accustomed to over time, but it's finally appears to be heading in the right direction, at least for now. Looking at the entertainment tax, as you can see, the line is a little choppier. That's really a reflection of kind of the smaller number of dollars that are subject to the entertainment tax, and it's therefore more volatile. from month to month, but that continues to grow, although it's at a 2.1% rate, significantly below where we were a year ago and 2 years ago. So that's where we are with entertainment tax dollars. Certainly not the robust growth we'd like to see in that, but growth nevertheless. Looking at our general fund through the first quarter, revenues and expenses. Revenues year to date of about $26 million. That represents 17% of our budgeted revenues in the general fund. That's on a percentage basis, slightly ahead of the past couple of years. That's partly due to accelerated property tax payments. That goes to the national income tax reform and the loss of, for a lot of people anyway, the loss of deductibility of property taxes starting in 18. So a lot of folks went in at the end of December and paid their property tax bill so that they could deduct it on their 2017 taxes. So those are dollars we would have received a little bit later in the year. We just got them earlier this year than we may have otherwise. Last year at this point, we had a little over $24 million in revenue, or about 15% of our budgeted revenues. So that's running a little bit, again, ahead of where we were a year ago. Again, the ongoing concern that we have really relates to sales tax revenues, the fact that they haven't returned to those robust growth levels of prior years, but we're certainly becoming a little more optimistic about the trend that we're seeing, at least in the first quarter of 2018. Looking at general fund expenditures, year to date, $33.3 million has been expended. That's about 21% of budget. That's slightly ahead of the last couple of years by a percentage point or two. Last year at this point, we had expended $32.4 million. We are running ahead on a percentage basis of where we would have seen in the past. That's primarily due to snow removal running high. We did have great winter weather up until the 1st of January, and then somebody flipped a switch and it started to snow, and we've had, through the end of March, we had 5 snow alerts, and that's as many as we had all of last year. So consequently, our snow removal budget has been taking a beating here, and of course that doesn't include the most recent snow alert that we had just this past weekend. So we'll keep a close eye on that, and when everything is tallied up, if the snow season does come to an end, we'll know pretty clearly what work we have cut out for us for the remainder of the year in terms of a budget management. All right, just briefly, I want to take a look and just kind of a refresher on the 2018 budget priorities. Of course, safety to the public is always paramount. Given the revenue constraints that we've seen the last couple of years, the focus has really been on providing high-quality core services. We haven't really taken on any significant new initiatives from an operational standpoint to provide new types of services, really focusing on those fundamental city services. Taking care of what we have, that's been the mantra for a number of years now. That certainly is the case with the 2018 budget, and focusing on improving the productivity and efficiency of our workforce and our programs that we do continue to manage. And of course, as always, goal is to maintain the city's strong financial position. Just a couple very high-level views of the 2018 budget. The services that we provide, what the taxpayers' dollar does purchase for them. It's the overall budget this year that was adopted by the council last fall, a little over $457 million. The biggest part of that, of course, is our 5 enterprise funds, the utilities, about $96.5 million. Highways and streets is the second largest chunk there, the 18%, or about $84 million. And about 36 of that is for capital improvements on the streets. So continuing to invest a lot of money there. And you can see kind of the rest of the 2018 budget, how that kind of rounds out to that total of $457 million. And on the other side of the ledger, where the money comes from, of course, taxes, no surprise, is the largest single source of funding for the city. 45% of our revenues in 2018 will come from taxes. Another $139 million, or about 30%, will come from charges for services. The biggest chunk of that, of course, is in our enterprise funds, our utilities and so forth that are funded on a charge for service basis. With that, I will conclude my remarks and see what questions you folks have.
Very good. Thank you, Director. Questions for Director Turbat? Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, Director, thank you very much for this report. It's important for us to get these. I noticed our reserves are still in good shape, and appreciate that very much. Also appreciate very much the very bottom on your second to last, third to last slide, where it says pension trusts, 36.5 million. I know that we've increased the percentage that we're funded well past 90% now, or well past, as I remember. And so I thank you very much for making sure that the pension that we have for our workers, for our employees, is well funded, and the money's going to be there for them, because that gets a lot of people in trouble if we don't do it.
Yeah, the City of Sioux Falls pension plans are really a shining example, as is the state of South Dakota's plan in terms of prudent financial management. The city and the state have taken very seriously their responsibility to adequately fund those plans, and you're absolutely right. The funding status for the city plans is very, very good. Got much stronger over the past year, and certainly very, very pleased about that. So thanks for bringing that up.
Any other questions for Director Turbat? Councilor Staley.
Director Turbeck, this last snow event that we had, can you give us an estimate of what that cost?
A lot. I don't know. I mean, they're still out working, so it's the meter is still running, I guess. So until the bills come in and everything is processed, really, I wouldn't even venture a guess at this point.
So we don't. You don't have like a generalized amount that it costs per season or per snowfall? Is it? I mean,
each storm is different. Each time whether it's an ice storm or a snowstorm, the type of snow, it all factors into how much it really costs, how long it takes to clear the streets, how many times we've got to treat the streets with chemical. So each one is different. I tend to avoid using kind of the analogy of so much per inch of snow, because that really, the way I look at it, that really doesn't always correlate correctly, and this last storm may be one of those. It really isn't a fair way to correlate the cost to the amount of snowfall. So it's very expensive. The budget is running high this year. By the time, my expectation is that by the time all the bills are in from this last storm, that we will have enough left in our snow removal budget really to pay just the basic fixed costs that we will have for snow removal going into next season. Now, that's before we move any snow at all. So the one thing that a lot of folks I don't think understand is one of the most expensive parts of budgeting for snow removal is just being prepared for it, having the equipment and the workforce and everything there prepared and ready to go. Even if we didn't move a flake of snow all year long, we'd still spend $4 to $5 million just being prepared for snow removal. So that's where the real biggest cost is, just in that preparation.
Okay, very good.
Okay, and then I got one other question.
Okay, go ahead.
On page 4 here, I just was wondering, and of course I like these priorities. It says focus on improving productivity and efficiency. Are there any like tangible things you have moving forward for that, to implement that?
Certainly a lot of the technology initiatives that we've seen over the years, the new financial management system, the new land management software system, we're just really getting off the ground with an asset management software system. We've just gone live a couple months ago. Actually, it was at the end of February, with new public safety software in collaboration with the county. And so those things really do result in tangible productivity enhancements. And Mike Cooper could probably attest to the benefits of the technology for building services and out in the field doing their building inspections and electrical inspections and all these things, where they've got, instead of writing it down on paper, they've got tablets and can do their inspection checklists and make their records right on the spot in the field, rather than having to transcribe that later. So that's certainly a productivity enhancement. And that's really just one off-the-cuff example I can give you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the director? Okay, well, seeing none, since the topic of snow removal came up, I'd just like to make a comment about that and compliment our Public Works team for doing an extremely good job under very adverse conditions. And it's often a thankless job because for some, they can't get the job done quick enough. But considering that we had over 14 inches of very wet, heavy snow, I thought the operation went by very quickly. And so I'd like to compliment the Public Works team, everybody that was out there doing their job.
Well, I'm sure
over a weekend again, too, by the way, which impacts our overtime and makes it even more expensive to do the job. And Director, if I'm not mistaken, is this your last presentation, budget presentation to the council? Because if we follow this timeline, it'll be the third week of Tuesday. And I'm not sure, is that actually your last day?
I will be around through the middle of June, so my expectation.
Oh, you will
is
be
I'll
here
back
through
for
June.
another-
Very good.
another presentation, yeah.
Good. Well, we
That's
look
my
forward
plan.
to the next one. Thank you very much. Councilor Rolfe.
Well, I just wanted to say, for those of us who will not be there, Michelle and I, we really do appreciate all the things that you brought to Sioux Falls. I just can't say enough, and we thank you, and that's one of the reasons that the mayor's had so much trust in you, and we have too, and thank you for your service, and let's go golfing.
Thank you, Councilor Rolfing. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That was our only presentation for the afternoon, and we're going to make it 4:35 is when we'll start our land use committee. It's been a while since we've had a land use committee, so looking forward to the discussion, and it looks like Director Cooper has a book to present to us here, so it's a good thing we're getting finished up with the informational early. So having said that, this meeting is adjourned.